Captain Denise Carter entered the bustling Greenwood Mall, a location she'd frequented for years without incident. To the eyes of the mall's retail staff, she presented as just another African-American woman carrying a rather full handbag, an individual seemingly predisposed to being falsely accused. The mall's security officers, Miller and Davis, noticeably intensified their surveillance, their movements deliberate, and their gaze fixed upon her. They advanced with an air of authority, seemingly eager to ensnare her. Then, Officer James Raines made his presence known. His demeanor was loud and presumptuous, embodying the very essence of fear disguised as law enforcement. However, what all of them failed to perceive was the fierce determination burning behind her composed expression. 2 decades of dedicated service, a captain's insignia earned through sheer tenacity and unwavering resolve, resided within her. They presumed she would submit without a struggle. They were profoundly mistaken, and in a single decisive instant, their overconfidence would collide head-on with reality. Before we delve deeper into this narrative, please share your geographical location in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe, as tomorrow's installment promises a story you absolutely will not want to miss. The Saturday afternoon sun, a warm embrace through Greenwood Mall's expansive skylights, dappled the immaculate flooring with golden light. Captain Denise Carter moved with a clear sense of purpose, her leather purse swinging with a gentle rhythm at her side. After an arduous week filled with endless paperwork and tiresome personnel meetings, the simple act of selecting a birthday present for her niece felt like a much-needed respite. "Something truly special for Jasmine," she whispered to herself, her eyes sweeping across the diverse array of shopfronts. The mall thrummed with the lively energy of weekend shoppers, including families navigating with strollers and groups of teenagers congregating near the central fountain. Denise allowed herself a moment of relaxation, consciously pushing aside thoughts of her demanding professional life. This tranquil interlude, however, lasted precisely 8 minutes. She detected their presence in the reflective sheen of a window display. 2 mall security guards maintained a distance that they likely believed was subtle. The taller of the 2, identified by his name tag as Miller, spoke into his radio while his eyes remained locked on Denise. His partner, Davis, the shorter guard, alternated his gaze between Denise and Miller, appearing distinctly uncomfortable. Denise's jaw tightened perceptibly. 20 years on the police force had honed her ability to detect surveillance from an impressive distance. She had endured being followed in retail establishments before. It was not a novel experience, but that did not diminish its inherent sting. "Copy that!" Miller's voice resonated through the corridor. "Black female, carrying a brown leather bag, wearing a blue sweater, remaining under observation." Denise's fingers instinctively curled into tight fists. The urge to spin around and confront them surged through her veins. She could effortlessly produce her badge, witness the immediate deflation of their smug expressions, and relish their discomfort. But no, she was off duty, on a personal shopping excursion for her niece. She refused to let them spoil this occasion. Taking a deliberate deep breath, she stepped across the threshold into Crystal's boutique, an establishment specializing in high-end jewelry and accessories. The air inside was perfumed with a delicate vanilla scent, accompanied by the soothing strains of soft jazz playing overhead. Behind the counter stood a middle-aged Caucasian woman adorned in a meticulously pressed blazer. Linda, her name tag indicated, stiffened visibly upon Denise's entrance. "Can I assist you?" Linda's tone was markedly sharp, her smile failing to reach her eyes. "Just browsing, thank you," Denise replied, her voice maintaining a steady, pleasant cadence, though her heart pounded vigorously against her ribs. She gravitated towards a display of exquisitely crafted charm bracelets, the very type Jasmine had been hinting at for months. Through the glass, Denise observed Linda covertly tracking her movements in the mirror positioned behind the counter. Outside the boutique's entrance, Miller and Davis loitered, making a transparent pretense of studying a nearby directory map. "These are all secured cases," Linda announced with forced loudness, suddenly materializing at Denise's elbow. "Items can only be retrieved by a staff member." "I understand," Denise responded, her focus remaining on the bracelets. "When I'm ready to examine something, I will certainly let you know." Linda did not retreat. Instead, she moved closer, her eyes darting between Denise and her handbag. The leather bag, which Denise had saved for 3 months to purchase, suddenly felt as though it were radiating an intense heat against her hip. "Actually," Denise stated, straightening her posture, "I would like to see that silver bracelet featuring the butterfly charm." Linda hesitated for a fraction of a second before slowly reaching for her keys. As she unlocked the display case, Denise noticed a slight tremor in Linda's hands. The store manager's anxiety was palpable, as if she anticipated Denise might abscond with the entire collection. The bracelet was indeed beautiful, its delicate links catching the ambient light, with tiny crystals sparkling brilliantly on the butterfly's wings. Denise smiled, picturing Jasmine's delighted expression upon receiving such a gift. "I'll take it," she began. "Excuse me," Linda interrupted abruptly. "I need to examine the contents of your bag." The boutique fell into an unnerving silence. Even the jazz music seemed to recede into the background. Denise felt a flush of heat creep up her neck as other shoppers turned their heads to observe the unfolding situation. "Excuse me," she reiterated, keeping her voice low and controlled. "A piece of jewelry is missing from this display case." Linda's voice escalated, gaining a more confident edge as Miller and Davis entered the store. "I observed you placing something inside your purse." Denise's hands began to tremble, not from fear, but from a burgeoning wave of indignation. "That is unequivocally false. I have touched nothing other than the bracelet you just showed me." "Ma'am, please cooperate," Miller interjected, his hand resting nonchalantly on his radio. "Empty your bag onto the counter." Denise drew herself to her full height, feeling the familiar weight of her professional authority settle upon her shoulders. "I will not. I have not stolen anything, and you have no legal right to search my personal belongings without probable cause." Davis shifted uncomfortably behind his partner. Linda's face had flushed a deep red, but she pressed on. "Either you reveal the contents of the bag, or we will be compelled to contact the police." "This constitutes harassment," Denise stated firmly. "You have been following me since I entered this mall. You are targeting me because I am black, and I will not endure this indignity." Miller advanced, attempting to leverage his physical presence to intimidate her. "This is your final opportunity. Open the bag, or matters will become significantly more complicated." Denise held her ground, her heart pounding a rapid rhythm, yet her voice remained remarkably steady. "I am not opening anything. You possess no legal standing, no probable cause, and no concrete evidence. Step away." "That's it," Miller declared, reaching for his radio. "Code 1 at Crystal's boutique. Subject refusing to comply, requesting immediate police backup." Other shoppers had congregated at the entrance, their mobile phones held aloft. Linda wrung her hands, her initial certainty diminishing as the situation escalated. Davis kept glancing towards the exits as if contemplating a swift departure, but Denise remained resolute. She had confronted armed individuals and navigated encounters with corrupt officers. She would not be intimidated by mall security or a prejudiced store manager. Her purse remained securely at her side, her gaze fixed intently on Miller. "You are making a grave error," she stated quietly. The air crackled with palpable tension as they awaited the arrival of backup, neither side showing any inclination to yield. The atmosphere within Crystal's boutique grew increasingly thick as Denise maintained her composure, despite the simmering rage threatening to erupt. "Before you proceed with these baseless accusations," she addressed Linda evenly, "perhaps we should review your establishment's security camera footage. It will clearly demonstrate that I have not taken anything." Linda's confidence faltered momentarily. "The cameras? They are readily visible." Denise gestured towards the conspicuous black dome situated in the ceiling corner. And there as well. Therefore, let us review the footage together." Miller did not await Linda's reply. He seized Denise's right arm, his fingers digging painfully into her skin. Davis, looking increasingly uneasy, took her left arm with a somewhat gentler grasp. "You have been duly warned," Miller growled menacingly. "Now you are actively interfering with security operations." Denise's extensive police training immediately engaged. She could have easily disengaged their grips within mere seconds, but doing so would only exacerbate the situation. Instead, she maintained a steady voice, pitched loud enough for the growing crowd to overhear. I am calmly requesting to view the security footage which would unequivocally prove my innocence. This is not interference. This is a reasonable and constructive resolution. The boutique's entrance suddenly darkened as a broad-shouldered figure pushed through the throng of onlookers. Officer James Rains swaggered in, his badge glinting, his face contorted in an expression that suggested anticipation rather than concern. Denise was well aware of Rains' reputation. Complaints detailing his aggressive arrest tactics and excessive force, particularly against black shoppers, frequently crossed her desk. He had inexplicably managed to avoid any significant repercussions, seemingly shielded connections within the department. What exactly do we have here? Rains boomed, ostentatiously surveying the scene. His hand rested with casual familiarity on his sidearm, a deliberate tactic designed to intimidate. Linda hurried forward to explain. She refuses to allow us to check her bag for stolen merchandise. Another one causing trouble, Rains declared dismissively, cutting Linda off as he directed his hostile gaze towards Denise. Always the same narrative, isn't it? Officer, Denise began, her tone professional. This is a misunderstanding that could be readily resolved by... Without any warning, Rains forcefully grabbed her shoulder and slammed her against the boutique's glass wall. The impact sent a shockwave through the display cases within, eliciting gasps from several onlookers. The glass felt frigid against her cheek as Rains pressed her with increased force. "Do not presume to instruct me on how to perform my duties," he snarled, his voice inches from her ear. "Place your hands behind your back immediately." "This constitutes excessive force," Denise declared loudly, her voice remarkably controlled despite the burning rage and profound humiliation churning within her chest. "I have rights, and you are flagrantly violating them." "Rights?" Rains scoffed, yanking her arms back with unnecessary roughness. "You have the right to remain silent while I add resisting arrest to your charges." The handcuffs clicked shut with a force that felt deliberately excessive. Around them, the crowd had significantly swelled. Mobile phones were held aloft by nearly everyone, capturing the unfolding scene. Some individuals whispered in outright disgust. Others voiced their dissent, declaring the situation unjust, but no one stepped forward to intervene. Rains spun her around and began to march her purposefully toward the mall corridor. Each step was a testament to Denise's meticulously controlled fury. She had dedicated her career to combating precisely this kind of abuse of power, and now she found herself on the receiving end of it. The mall's main thoroughfare had come to an abrupt halt. Shoppers pressed themselves against the storefronts, their phones held high, documenting the spectacle of a well-dressed black woman being publicly escorted in handcuffs. Denise held her head high, even as the awkward angle of her bound arms sent searing pain through her shoulders. "You are creating an unnecessary spectacle," Rains announced loudly, clearly playing to the assembled audience. "You should have simply cooperated." They reached the mall's side exit where Rains' patrol car awaited. The afternoon sun, after the mall's filtered illumination, struck Denise's eyes harshly, forcing her to blink several times to adjust her vision. "Before this situation escalates any further," she stated clearly, turning to face the growing contingent of onlookers, "I believe you should be aware of something, Officer Rains." "Save it for booking," he snapped, reaching for the car door handle. "I am Captain Denise Carter, 15th Precinct." Her voice carried clearly across the parking lot. "My badge is located in my front pocket, a fact you would have ascertained if you had bothered to request identification prior to assaulting me." The murmurs from the crowd intensified. Several individuals moved closer, their phones still recording. Rains's face registered a fleeting flicker of uncertainty before hardening into a sneer. "Sure you are," he scoffed, though a new discernible edge of nervousness crept into his tone. "And I am the police commissioner." "Check my pocket," Denise insisted. "The left side." Rains hesitated for a moment, then roughly patted her pocket. His hand froze mid-motion as it encountered the familiar, solid form of a police badge. Slowly, deliberately, he withdrew it, the polished gold shield catching the sunlight. "This is a forgery," he declared, but his voice had demonstrably lost its authoritative timbre. "That constitutes another charge, impersonating a police officer." The crowd's reaction was immediate and vocal. "She's a captain," someone shouted from the back. "He arrested a police captain for shopping," another voice chimed in. The phones continued to record, documenting every second of Rain's increasingly evident discomfiture. "I strongly suggest you remove these restraints," Denise stated calmly. "Before you further incriminate yourself, officer, this badge could be fake," Rains insisted, though his hands trembled slightly. "I'm taking you in for verification and adding further charges." "For what, exactly?" Denise challenged, maintaining her steady voice despite her escalating anger. "For shopping while black. Is that still your established protocol, Officer Rains?" More phones materialized in the crowd. Someone was initiating a live stream. Rains' face had assumed an unpleasant shade of crimson as he finally grasped the magnitude of his miscalculation. However, instead of de-escalating, he once again grabbed Denise's arm, attempting to force her into the patrol car. "You are only exacerbating your predicament," he growled. "Fake badge, resisting arrest, obstructing an officer." The crowd's volume swelled, their collective outrage becoming palpable. Denise remained steadfast, even in her manacled state, her voice cutting clearly through the escalating chaos. "Every single second of this is being recorded, officer. Every instance of abuse of power, every violation of departmental protocol. Are you absolutely certain you wish to continue?" The crowd's anger surged like an incoming tide, their voices rising in a unified chorus of protest. "Let her go!" someone shouted from the rear. Others joined the chant, and within moments, dozens of individuals were shouting in unison, their phones held aloft like flickering torches in the fading afternoon light. Rains shifted uncomfortably, his grip still firmly on Denise's arm, but clearly bewildered about how to proceed. His usual tactics of intimidation were backfiring spectacularly as more mall visitors paused to swell the growing assembly. "This is going viral," a teenage girl announced loudly, her eyes glued to her phone screen. "It's already got thousands of shares on TikTok. Are you all seeing this? They arrested a black police captain for going shopping." Denise remained perfectly still, her posture erect despite the biting pressure of the handcuffs. She had navigated countless confrontational situations during her 20 years of service. However, being on this side of the restraints offered a starkly different perspective, one that burned deep within her chest. A mall security supervisor, his face a mask of sheer panic, came running out. Close behind him, a woman in a crisp business suit clutched her phone, speaking rapidly into it. The supervisor took in the entire scene, the incensed crowd, the handcuffed police captain, the increasingly agitated Officer Rains, and his face went ashen. "Internal Affairs is en route," the woman in the suit announced, identifying herself as Patricia Wells, the mall's public relations director. "Officer, perhaps we should escort this situation indoors." "There is nothing to escort indoors," Denise stated firmly. "These handcuffs need to be removed immediately." More phones appeared in the crowd. Live streams proliferated. Comments and shares exploded across various social media platforms. The story was disseminating with an unprecedented speed that was beyond anyone's control. "Look at these viewership numbers," someone called out. "Already at 20,000 views." Patricia Wells stepped closer, her professional smile strained. "Officer Rains, considering the circumstances, perhaps we should—" "I do not take directives from mall management," Rains snapped. Yet his bravado was demonstrably cracking. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, defying the cool air. A police cruiser entered the parking lot, its lights flashing silently. Sergeant Robert Watkins emerged from the vehicle, his weathered face carefully neutral as he assessed the unfolding drama. He had collaborated with Denise for years and was acutely aware of her impeccable reputation for integrity. "Officer Rains," Watkins called out, his tone deceptively casual. "Would you care to explain why you have a police captain in custody?" Rains' grip on Denise's arm finally loosened. "Sergeant, I was responding to a reported theft. This individual claimed to be a captain, but that is, in fact, Captain Carter, Watkins interjected. She is your commanding officer's commanding officer. That badge you are holding? It is authentic. I suggest you verify that fact with extreme haste. The crowd had fallen silent, intently observing the unfolding drama. Raines's face cycled through a spectrum of emotions: anger, fear, calculation. Finally, with noticeably shaking hands, he produced his keys and removed the handcuffs. Denise gently rubbed her wrists, noting the distinct red marks where the metal had dug into her skin. She knew she would have bruises by tomorrow, tangible evidence of yet another routine encounter that had gone terribly wrong. Patricia Wells stepped forward, speaking loudly enough for the phones in the crowd to capture every syllable. Captain Carter, on behalf of Greenwood Mall, I wish to extend our most sincere apologies for this unfortunate incident. We pride ourselves on fostering a welcoming environment for all shoppers, and it is abundantly clear that we failed you today. Unfortunate incident, Denise repeated, her voice laced with a sharp edge. Is that what we are now labeling racial profiling and police brutality? The public relations director visibly flinched. More phones recorded her discomfort. We will be initiating a comprehensive investigation, Wells continued, her professional demeanor beginning to fracture. Our security protocols will undergo a thorough review. And spare me the platitudes, Denise cut her off. Your security cameras captured the entire event. I strongly advise you to preserve that footage. The crowd murmured in approval. Several individuals called out their support, offering to submit their video recordings as supplementary evidence. While the mall's PR team frantically attempted to contain the escalating crisis, Sergeant Watkins approached Denise, speaking in a low tone. You should be aware, Raines was already on his radio before I arrived. Let me guess, Denise replied quietly, documenting his own version of events. Watkins nodded grimly. He's already alleging you resisted and physically struck him during the apprehension. You understand the nature of these official reports. The initial written account invariably becomes the established narrative. Denise felt a fresh wave of anger wash over her, but she maintained a neutral expression. She had witnessed this exact pattern unfold countless times before. Fabricated reports used to legitimize excessive force, particularly against black citizens who dared to assert their rights. He has no comprehension of who he is dealing with, she informed Watkins. The crowd eventually began to disperse as mall management worked to restore a semblance of normal operations. Denise collected her belongings, including her badge, which Raines had unceremoniously dropped on the ground before making a swift departure from the scene. The drive home felt almost dreamlike. The familiar streets of her neighborhood appeared unchanged, yet everything within her had been fundamentally altered. Her hands remained steady on the steering wheel, but her mind raced, processing the profound implications of the day's events. Upon entering her house, Denise headed directly to her home office. She needed to meticulously document everything while the details were still vivid in her memory. The laptop hummed to life with a soft whir. Her email notification pinged. A new message had arrived from the department. The subject line read, Incident Report 2, T1234887. Denise opened the attachment, her jaw tightening as she began to read. According to Raines's official report, she had been confrontational and aggressively uncooperative from the outset. He asserted that she had lashed out at officers and actively resisted legitimate security protocols. The report painted a damning picture of an out-of-control, angry black woman. It was the very stereotype she had dedicated her entire career to combating. She leaned back in her chair, the accusations blazing on her screen. The email had been meticulously copied to Internal Affairs, the Chief's Office, and the Police Union. Raines had acted with remarkable speed, attempting to control the official narrative. The kitchen clock indicated 7:30 p.m. when Carla Johnson arrived, bearing a bottle of wine and wearing the expression of deep concern that Denise had come to recognize well over their 15 years of friendship. As a seasoned defense attorney, Carla had encountered enough cases to immediately sense when trouble was brewing. I ordered Chinese food, Denise announced, gesturing towards the takeout containers arranged on the dining room table. I figured we would require sustenance for this conversation. Carla placed her bag down and withdrew a manila folder. I've reviewed the report you forwarded. It's even more concerning than I initially suspected, Denise. They settled at the table, the familiar comfort of their usual dinner routine now overshadowed by the day's traumatic events. Denise served the food while Carla poured the wine. Both women fell into a practiced rhythm that spoke volumes of years of shared experiences and hard-fought battles. Tell me plainly, Denise said, pushing her sweet and sour chicken around her plate with her fork. How dire is the situation? Carla took a slow sip of wine before responding. The report is meticulously crafted to trigger an internal affairs investigation. Rains understands precisely what he is doing. He is claiming you physically assaulted him during the arrest. That is classified as assault on a police officer. He has effectively portrayed you as hostile, aggressive, uncooperative, and he has those mall security guards corroborating his fabricated account. But there are videos, Denise protested. Dozens of witnesses observed precisely what transpired. Videos can be beneficial, Carla conceded, but you are fully aware of how the department operates. They will argue that the footage is incomplete, that it does not depict the entire context of the situation. They will deliberately focus on your demeanor. They will claim you escalated the encounter. Carla's fork clinked against her plate as she set it down. And let's be frank, we're both aware of how the system handles officers of color who cause a stir. Denise pushed her meal aside, her appetite vanishing. So, what avenues are open to me? Legally, we have grounds to contest this. The footage is beneficial, and your professional history is impeccable. However, Carla hesitated, carefully selecting her words. If the police force decides to propagate this particular narrative, you could find yourself suspended pending a thorough inquiry. They might even attempt to compel you into early retirement based on a fabricated shoplifting allegation. Denise's voice escalated, tinged with incredulity. No, Carla responded gently, for challenging the established order, for making them appear in a negative light, for being a woman of color who refused to quietly endure humiliation. The stark truth of those statements lingered heavily in the air. Denise stood, moving towards the kitchen window. Outside, her tranquil, suburban street exuded an aura of peace. It seemed normal, yet nothing felt normal any longer. I could go public, Denise stated, turning back to face her companion. The story has already surfaced. I could grant interviews, present my perspective. Carla's expression conveyed increasing unease. That's fraught with peril. Do you recall Captain Williams from the 12th Precinct? He publicly denounced racial profiling within his division 3 years ago. The last I heard, he's currently employed in security at a warehouse in Ohio. The system possesses methods for making examples of individuals who voice their concerns. So, I'm expected to simply accept this? Denise's hands clenched into tight fists, to allow them to fabricate their falsehoods, to dismantle my reputation, everything I've diligently strived for. No, Carla asserted with conviction. We strategize intelligently. We meticulously gather evidence. We construct a compelling case. She paused once more before adding, And Denise, I don't believe this is solely about you. What exactly do you mean? Carla retrieved a manila folder she had brought, spreading several documents across the table. Over the past year, I've represented 6 clients, all of whom are black, and all of whom were apprehended at or in close proximity to that shopping center. Each was charged with resisting arrest or assaulting officers. In every instance, these arrests followed their lodging complaints of harassment. Denise leaned forward, scrutinizing the papers. Her law enforcement training immediately engaged as she absorbed the specifics. The same officers are implicated across the board. Rains is a recurring figure in most of these cases, and observe the established pattern. The charges consistently emerge subsequent to the complaints being filed. It appears they are employing the threat of legal action as a means to silence individuals. Denise experienced a palpable chill. The implications were profoundly significant. How many instances are we contemplating? These are merely the cases that have reached my attention. How many individuals do you suppose accepted plea bargains because they lacked the financial resources to mount a defense? How many remained silent due to fear? The discussion continued late into the night. Both women meticulously dissected details, searching for recurring themes, piecing together a broader panorama. By the time Carla departed, the kitchen clock indicated nearly midnight. Yet, sleep remained elusive. Denise sat in her dimly lit living room, her laptop casting an ethereal blue glow upon her face as she navigated social media. The videos depicting her apprehension had gone viral. Some commentary expressed fervent indignation, demanding accountability. Others spewed vitriolic racist remarks, alleging she was fabricating a narrative or received her just desserts. A news outlet had seized upon the story: Black police captain detained while shopping, racial profiling or legitimate stop. The comment section had devolved into a contentious arena of opposing viewpoints. Her phone vibrated on the coffee table. An unknown number. The message prompted her to sit up straighter. "Back down, Captain. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into." Denise gazed intently at the screen, her law enforcement training instinctively registering specific details. A local area code. The text was transmitted via a standard cellular network, not a dedicated messaging application. The threat was unambiguous yet subtly phrased. No explicitly criminal language was employed. She captured a screenshot, meticulously documenting the precise time and date, another piece of evidence for whatever lay ahead. The phone's illumination illuminated her face in the darkened room, accentuating the resolute expression in her eyes. They presumed they could intimidate her into silence. They were unaware of whom they were confronting. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Carla's office as Denise arrived promptly at 8 a.m. The law firm was remarkably quiet, the majority of the staff not expected for another hour. That was precisely the reason they had arranged to meet at such an early juncture. "I've been poring over cases all night," Carla remarked. Her desk was laden with stacks of manila folders. The dark circles beneath her eyes mirrored Denise's own weary appearance. "What have you uncovered? It's more extensive than we initially anticipated." Denise settled into the chair opposite her friend, clutching a travel mug filled with much-needed coffee. "Show me." Carla arranged dozens of case files, creating a mosaic of documents across her expansive desk. Each of these represents a false arrest report from the preceding year. All involve Black residents. The majority occurred at or near Greenwood Mall. How many? 47 cases I can definitively confirm. However, these are solely the instances where individuals opted to contest the charges or sought legal recourse. For every individual who challenges the accusations, there are likely 5 who cannot afford to do so. Denise leaned forward, her gaze sweeping across the documents. Her trained eye immediately discerned recurring patterns. The same officers are consistently involved. Rains, Martinez, Cooper, and observed the nature of the charges. Carla indicated several files: resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, disorderly conduct. These are all charges that place the citizen's testimony in direct opposition to the officers, making them exceptionally difficult to contest in court, Denise added, her jaw tightening. Precisely. And this is where it becomes particularly intriguing. Carla produced a spreadsheet she had compiled. Of these cases, 86% conclude with guilty pleas. Most defendants accept settlements rather than risk a trial. "That's considerably higher than typical plea rates," Denise commented, her investigative instincts fully activated. "And every single plea agreement mandates probation." Carla's tone acquired a sharp edge. Specifically, probation administered through a private entity known as New Horizons Supervision Services. Denise's eyebrows arched in surprise. "Private probation? I wasn't even aware that was permissible. It's a burgeoning trend. Municipalities are outsourcing probation monitoring to reduce expenses. However, examine the fees these individuals are subjected to." Carla presented another document. Monthly supervision charges, fees for drug testing, expenses for electronic monitoring. Some individuals end up incurring thousands of dollars throughout their probation period, effectively creating a new system of debtor's prison, Denise murmured, a surge of anger building within her. and if they fail to make payments, they violate their probation. Back to incarceration, more fees. It's an unending cycle. Denise stood, too agitated to remain seated. I need access to our internal precinct files regarding this matter. There must be a documented record at the station. Exercise caution, Carla cautioned. Following that threat last night, I am still a police captain. I have every right to review arrest records. Denise gathered her belongings. They cannot impede me from performing my duties. Approximately 1 hour later, Denise was seated at her desk within the precinct, meticulously retrieving digital records. She observed the sidelong glances from fellow officers, the hushed conversations that ceased upon her approach. The report detailing the false arrest had evidently circulated widely. She disregarded them, concentrating on her computer screen. Years of arrest data scrolled past as she searched for discernible patterns. Location: Greenwood Mall. Officer: Rains. Charge: resisting arrest. The numbers continued to accumulate. Then she discovered something that gave her pause. A memorandum pertaining to the department's collaboration with New Horizons Supervision Services. The company's chief executive officer was listed as Richard Greenwood, a member of the same family that owned the mall. Investigating further, she uncovered financial statements. The probation company operated as a subsidiary of Greenwood Holdings LLC. The mall's security firm was also a subsidiary. It was all interconnected. Her phone buzzed. A text message from Carla. Found something else. These cases experience a surge every quarter, immediately preceding the mall's financial earnings reports to its shareholders. Denise's mind raced. An increased number of arrests implied a greater number of individuals placed on probation. A greater number of individuals on probation signified more fees collected. The mall's security forces targeted black shoppers. Local police initiated arrests based on fabricated charges, and the Greenwood family profited from the resultant probation payments. She printed key documents, carefully placing them into her briefcase. As she departed, she overheard more whispers, more scrutinizing looks. Let them talk. She had more pressing concerns now. The afternoon sun beat down intensely as Denise parked her vehicle across from Greenwood Mall. The building's gleaming glass facade projected an image of opulent retail affluence. Yesterday, she had perceived it as the site of her personal humiliation. Now her perspective had shifted. She observed shoppers entering and exiting the premises. Mall security personnel were stationed at every entrance, their hands resting on their radios. A young black mother hurried past, clutching her purse tightly, her eyes darting nervously. A teenage boy was being shadowed by a guard, much like she had been. The sheer magnitude of the situation struck her all at once. How long had this been occurring? How many lives had been irrevocably altered by unjust accusations? How many families had been financially devastated by probation fees, all to augment the Greenwood family's profits? Denise gripped her steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. In her 2 decades of law enforcement service, she had witnessed ample corruption and pervasive systemic racism. However, this situation was distinct. This was calculated, organized exploitation. She stared at the mall's imposing entrance, where, just the previous day, she had been forcibly removed in handcuffs. Her voice was barely audible in the hushed confines of the car. This wasn't solely about me. Denise had just settled at her desk with a stack of documents when a knock interrupted her thoughts. A young Latina woman stood in the doorway of her office, a notebook in hand. "Captain Carter, I'm Maya Lopez from the City Herald." She stepped forward purposefully, her press badge dangling from a lanyard. "Do you have a moment?" Denise was about to deliver her standard no-comment response, but something in Maya's determined gaze made her pause. "Close the door." Maya sat down, already activating her phone to record. "I've been following your case since the mall incident, but that's not why I'm here. I've spent 6 months investigating Officer Rains and his connections to private probation companies." Denise leaned back, observing the journalist. "What have you uncovered?" "Financial trails, shell corporations, suspicious timing of arrests." Maya pulled up documents on her tablet, but I've hit numerous roadblocks. Sources become reticent, records vanish. Then I saw the video of what transpired with you, and I realized this was my opportunity. Your opportunity for what? To finally expose this. Maya's eyes blazed with unwavering conviction. I possess banking records indicating substantial transfers from New Horizons to offshore accounts, along with tax documents that are inconsistent, but I require someone on the inside to assist in connecting these disparate pieces. Denise considered the situation carefully. Journalists could be allies or adversaries, but Maya's intensity reminded her of herself 20 years prior. What is your angle on this story? The unvarnished truth. How a prejudiced officer and a corporate apparatus are systematically destroying black lives for financial gain. Maya leaned forward. I witnessed my immigrant parents being subjected to harassment by the police and targeted by predatory corporations throughout my upbringing. This is more than just a story for me. After a prolonged silence, Denise nodded. I cannot serve as your official source, but I may be aware of individuals who can aid you in tracing the financial flows. That's all I require. Maya offered a smile. And I might have something beneficial for you as well. Have you ever heard of the Justice Coalition? 2 hours later, they were seated in a cramped meeting room at a community center. Reverend Marcus Green, a tall man with distinguished graying temples, spread photographs across the table. These are solely from the past 3 months. All instances of false arrests perpetrated by Rains and his associates. Surrounding them sat other community leaders, educators, small business proprietors, and activists. Each possessed their own accounts involving Rains. Each had been diligently collecting evidence. We have been meticulously documenting everything, stated Lisa Chen, a local teacher. Videos, witness testimonies, medical records of individuals who were roughed up by Rains. But every complaint is invariably dismissed. The police review board is utterly ineffective, added Jerome Wilson, the proprietor of a barbershop near the mall. They are all in Greenwood's pocket. Maya took rapid notes while Denise examined the accumulated evidence. Dozens of sworn affidavits detailed the identical pattern. Fabricated accusations, violent apprehensions, undue pressure to accept plea bargains. This woman, Reverend Green, indicated a photograph, a single mother of 3. Rains alleged she assaulted him during a traffic stop. Presently, she's obligated to pay $300 monthly in probation fees. She was compelled to secure a second job. They threatened to take her children if she contested the charges, Lisa added quietly. Denise's hands clenched. Why have these accounts not surfaced previously? Fear, Jerome responded simply. Rains makes a point of targeting individuals who speak out. Unusual traffic stops, sudden violations of building codes, children being subjected to harassment at school. But we maintained records, Reverend Green stated, awaiting someone with the requisite authority to act. He directed a meaningful glance at Denise. Maya interjected. With these affidavits and my financial documentation, we could construct a robust case. The Herald would publish it. It will necessitate more than a single article, Denise cautioned. The Greenwood family commands extensive legal teams. Then we will publish a series, Maya declared with resolve. We will meticulously follow every thread. We will demonstrate the pervasive extent of this issue. They spent an additional hour planning, interlinking various components of the complex puzzle. The activists possessed years of compiled documentation. Maya brought financial expertise. Denise contributed insider knowledge of police procedures. We must proceed with utmost care, Denise warned as they concluded their meeting. These individuals will not relinquish their position without a formidable struggle. That is precisely why we must act decisively and swiftly, Maya argued. Once the initial report is released, others will undoubtedly come forward. Darkness had enveloped the surroundings by the time Denise navigated her vehicle into her driveway. The day's revelations weighed heavily upon her. So many lives impacted, such a vast quantity of evidence disregarded. She was aware of the existence of racism within the department, but this degree of organized exploitation was shocking even to her. Her porch light flickered as she approached her front door. The mailbox was overflowing, its contents spilling onto the ground. Unusual mail had already been delivered that morning, As she gathered the scattered envelopes, a sense of unease tightened in her stomach. There were no return addresses, no postmarks, and they appeared to have been hand-delivered. Inside, she spread them out on her kitchen table. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the first one. It contained a crudely drawn depiction of a hanging figure. Beneath it, words fashioned from magazine cutouts read, "Mind your own business." The next envelope held photographs, surveillance images of her leaving her residence, shopping, and meeting with Carla. Someone had been following her. More letters were subsequently revealed. Racial slurs written in a jagged, uneven script. Threats directed at her family. Photographs of her niece's school. The final envelope contained a single photograph. It was an image of Denise being apprehended at the mall. Someone had drawn crosshairs directly over her face. She sank heavily into her kitchen chair, the hate mail surrounding her like a macabre confetti of malice. They were attempting to intimidate her into silence, much like they had coerced so many others, but they had made a critical error. Denise Carter was not easily intimidated, and now she possessed tangible proof that they were sufficiently concerned to resort to threats. She carefully collected the letters, preserving any potential evidence they might contain. Tomorrow, she would present them to Maya and the coalition. Let them document yet another instance of intimidation. The threat served as confirmation that she was on the correct path, and more importantly, she was no longer alone. The following morning, Denise proceeded through the precinct hallway, the offensive mail feeling like a burning weight in her briefcase. She felt a pressing need to secure the support of someone in a higher position. Lieutenant Harris's office door was ajar, and she could observe him reviewing reports at his desk. "Got a minute, Mark?" she inquired, tapping lightly on the doorframe. Harris looked up, a familiar, easy smile gracing his features. "For you. Always, Captain." He gestured towards the chair situated opposite his desk. "Close the door." Denise settled into the chair, her gaze intently studying her old friend's face. She had known Mark Harris for 15 years, and they had collaborated on countless cases. He had supported her promotion to captain and stood by her when others questioned her leadership. "I need to show you something," she stated, retrieving the threatening letters. "This was discovered in my mailbox last night." Harris's expression darkened as he carefully examined the hate mail. His jaw tightened visibly upon viewing the photograph with the crosshairs. "Jesus! Denise, have you filed a report regarding this?" "With whom?" She leaned forward. "Mark, this situation extends far beyond Rains and that mall incident. I've been conducting an investigation, and there is a discernible pattern. False arrests, coerced plea agreements, all feeding into this private probation scheme. That is a serious accusation." Harris carefully set the letters down. "You have evidence to substantiate it. I have statements from victims, financial records revealing suspicious transactions, and now these threats." She indicated the letters. "Someone is evidently intimidated enough to resort to threatening me." Harris rubbed his temples. "Look, you know I've always supported you, but this type of investigation could potentially destabilize the entire department." "It needs to be destabilized." Denise's voice grew more resolute. "You've witnessed Rains's methods, the number of complaints we've suppressed. This isn't merely about corrupt officers. It's systematic exploitation." "I hear you." Harris stood and began pacing behind his desk. "You're correct. This warrants a thorough investigation, but we must proceed with extreme caution." He turned to face her. "Allow me to assist. I can discreetly make some inquiries, ascertain who else might be willing to come forward." Relief washed over Denise. "Thanks, Mark. I knew I could rely on you. Always." He offered a warm smile. "Just exercise caution, all right? Perhaps stay with family for a few days until we ascertain who sent these threats." "I'm not going into hiding," Denise declared firmly. "That's precisely what they desire." Stubborn as ever, Harris shook his head fondly. "At the very least, let me assign a patrol car to regularly drive by your residence. I can handle myself." Denise gathered the letters. "But thank you. It provides considerable reassurance knowing you stand with me." "We look out for our own," Harris assured her. "Keep me informed of your discoveries." The remainder of Denise's day passed in a blur of routine duties and meticulous evidence collection. She made duplicate copies of essential documents, storing them in secure locations. It was common for records to mysteriously disappear in cases of this nature. It was well past midnight when she finally headed home. The street was quiet, the chirping of crickets the only sound in the warm summer air. She pulled into her driveway, the automatic lights illuminating her usual parking space. The harsh glare revealed angry red letters sprayed across the hood and doors of her vehicle. Traitor! Denise froze, keys still in hand. The paint was still wet, dripping down the white surface of her sedan. Her mind raced. The timing, the message. This was not random vandalism. She conducted a swift survey of her surroundings, her hand instinctively reaching for her holster. Nothing moved in the shadows. Whoever had perpetrated this act was long gone. With trembling fingers, she photographed the damage. Then she noticed something that sent a cold dread through her. The vandals had etched a message into the paint. "Keep your mouth shut, Captain." Only someone within the department would be aware of her rank. Only someone from the inside would know she was conducting an investigation. She recalled everyone she had confided in about the case: Maya, the coalition members, Carla, Harris. Her conversation with Harris replayed in her mind. He had offered to discreetly investigate, inquired about others who were aware of her inquiry. "Damn it," she whispered. She had divulged everything to him. The evidence she had unearthed, the names of potential witnesses, if he was collaborating with Rains. Inside her house, Denise slumped heavily into a kitchen chair. Her badge lay on the table, precisely where she had left it that morning. The gold shield caught the light, casting shadows across the wall. 20 years. She had worn that badge for 2 decades. She had believed in its principles, defended the department against accusations of systemic racism, and convinced herself that change would originate from within. Now, she gazed at the emblem of her entire life's dedication, pondering if the corruption extended all the way through, if anything remained worth preserving. The shield blurred as tears of anger and betrayal threatened to spill. She blinked them back. No time for self-pity. She had decisions to make. Trust no one within the department. Document everything meticulously. Construct the case discreetly until she possessed irrefutable proof. The vandals had made one thing abundantly clear. She was entirely on her own within these walls. Her badge gleamed accusingly in the dim kitchen light. The weight of 2 decades bore down on her, a heavy cloak of disillusionment as she confronted the stark reality that the institution she had championed had seemingly transformed into the very entity she had pledged to oppose. The following morning, Denise's mobile device vibrated, announcing an urgent dispatch from Maya. "Urgent meeting needed," the message read. "Major development, our usual rendezvous." 20 minutes later, Denise found herself seated in the rear alcove of Jerry's diner, a lukewarm cup of coffee neglected before her. The modest eatery was sparsely populated, with only a handful of familiar faces scattered along the counter. A cheerful chime announced Maya's hurried arrival. Her messenger bag was held with a firm grip against her hip. "Apologies for the delay," Maya stated, sliding into the booth. Her gaze swept across the diner's interior before she leaned closer, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "But you are absolutely going to want to witness this." Maya produced a manila envelope, taking care to keep its contents concealed beneath the table's surface. "You recall the informant I mentioned? The one within the mall's administration?" She slid the envelope across the tabletop to Denise. They delivered in a significant way. Denise delicately unfurled the envelope, revealing several sheets bearing corporate letterhead. Her eyes widened in comprehension as she absorbed the initial page. "These are internal communications from the mall's board gatherings," Maya confirmed, her tone barely audible, spanning a period of 18 months. "Direct your attention to the 3rd page." Denise turned to the specified leaf. The memorandum detailed initiatives for loss prevention, a veiled reference to enhanced security measures. However, as her perusal continued, her hands began to tremble. The document outlined explicit directives for security personnel to identify individuals from high-risk demographic profiles, a transparent guise for discriminatory profiling. It incorporated verbatim excerpts from discussions where board members deliberated on collaborating with local law enforcement to amplify apprehension opportunities. They were working in direct concert with Rains, Maya elaborated, indicating a marked passage. The board sanctioned remuneration for security staff contingent upon the volume of arrests. They were fully cognizant of their actions, Denise murmured, continuing to read. The memo detailed the mechanism by which apprehensions would be channeled into a private probationary framework operated by a firm known as New Horizons Supervision Services. The mall's overarching corporate entity held a controlling stake in this venture. It's all here, Denise exhaled. The entire scheme. They weren't merely permitting discriminatory profiling, they were actively encouraging it, transforming it into a revenue stream. Maya nodded, her expression grave. Each unjustifiable apprehension translated into another individual ensnared in their probationary program. Monthly fees, mandatory remedial courses, all diverting funds back to the same corporate interests. How did you obtain this? Denise inquired, carefully reinserting the documents into the envelope. My contact works in corporate accounting, Maya explained. They've been meticulously documenting everything, anticipating an investigation. Maya's eyes gleamed with an almost conspiratorial light. Upon witnessing the viral dissemination of your apprehension footage, they recognized the opportune moment had arrived. Denise leaned back, her mind a whirlwind of strategic calculations. This was precisely the evidence they required. Undeniable proof of collusion between law enforcement and corporate entities, tangible evidence of deliberate targeting of African American shoppers. This could not be dismissed as isolated incidents or the actions of a few rogue officers. We must safeguard this information, Denise declared with unwavering resolve. And your associate, once this information is publicized, is already protected, Maya assured her. They have comprehensively documented every aspect with redundant digital backups stored in secure locales. Astute, Denise remarked, tucking the envelope securely into her jacket. I will digitize these tonight, create redundant copies. However, we must proceed with extreme caution, especially after the incident with my vehicle. You suspect someone within the department is complicit? Denise's voice was steely. I know it for a fact. Lieutenant Harris. I placed my trust in him. I confided in him about this investigation. The very next day, my vehicle was vandalized with a clear warning. Only someone on the inside would know to leave such a specific message, Maya observed, her countenance darkening. Then we maintain absolute discretion regarding these documents until we are prepared for public disclosure. Agreed, Denise affirmed. She glanced at her wristwatch. I need to secure these materials. Then we formulate our subsequent strategy. They bid each other farewell outside the diner, Maya proceeding towards the newspaper office, while Denise drove home, the vital envelope nestled safely within her attire. Her hand repeatedly touched it during the journey, seeking reassurance of its tangible reality. Upon reaching her residence, Denise proceeded directly to her study. The substantial oak desk, a legacy from her father, featured a discreet concealed compartment within its lowest drawer. With meticulous care, she placed the envelope inside, then secured the drawer with a key she habitually wore around her neck. For the first time in weeks, a flicker of optimism ignited within her. The oppressive burden of isolation and betrayal seemed to marginally recede. They now possessed irrefutable evidence, transcending mere witness testimonies or circumstantial findings, but direct documentary proof of the conspiracy. Denise prepared a meal, genuinely savoring the flavors rather than simply going through the motions. She monitored her security cameras, a now ingrained practice, but the street remained tranquil. No unfamiliar vehicles, no nocturnal marauders. Later, as she prepared for slumber, Denise allowed herself to envision the eventual fallout. The press conference, where every detail would be unveiled. The stunned expressions on the faces of the mall executives, Rains, Harris, and all involved as their elaborate scheme lay exposed. The victims finally receiving their due justice. She extinguished the lights, the house settling into its customary symphony of creaks and murmurs. The desk drawer remained locked securely, its key safely ensconced around her neck. For the first time since this ordeal commenced, sleep came with surprising ease. Tomorrow would be dedicated to strategizing the release of the evidence. But for tonight, Denise could find solace in rest, knowing they finally possessed what was essential. The truth would be brought to light. Justice would be dispensed. The memorandum served as their key to dismantling the entire corrupt edifice. As Denise surrendered to slumber, she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in weeks. The conclusion was finally within grasp. Denise awakened early, invigorated by the preceding day's breakthrough. She poured her morning coffee and sent a text to Maya. Ready to strategize next steps? No reply. An hour later, still no response. This was highly uncharacteristic of Maya, who typically responded within moments. Denise attempted a call, but it went directly to voicemail. She left a message, striving for a casual tone. "Hey, just checking in about our discussion yesterday. Call me when you can." By noon, a gnawing anxiety tightened its grip in her stomach. She had dispatched 3 more texts and placed 2 additional calls. Maya's silence was deafening. Denise was reviewing case files at her desk when her phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. Her coffee cup clattered to the floor as she scanned the headline, "Local reporter hospitalized following brutal assault." The article loaded with agonizing slowness. Maya's photograph appeared. Investigative journalist Maya Lopez was discovered unconscious early this morning. Denise snatched her keys, her hands trembling. The drive to Metro General felt interminable. Every red traffic signal seemed to stretch into eternity. Her mind raced through a cascade of possibilities, each more dire than the last. This was her culpability. She had drawn Maya into this perilous predicament. The hospital lobby teemed with members of the press. Denise flashed her badge, navigating through the throng to the information desk. Maya Lopez's room. "Are you family?" the receptionist inquired. "Police captain," Denise stated, the falsehood tumbling out effortlessly. "She is a key witness in an ongoing investigation." Room 412. The elevator ascended at a glacial pace. Denise's guilt intensified with every passing second. She should have foreseen that they would target Maya. She should have provided her with superior protection. The door to room 412 stood ajar. Maya lay in the hospital bed, her face bearing contusions, her left arm encased in a cast. Despite her grievous condition, her eyes brightened upon seeing Denise. "You look dreadful," Maya rasped. "Me?" Denise moved to the bedside. "You're the one in the hospital gown. You should see the other fellow." Maya attempted a smile but winced. "What transpired?" Denise asked, procuring a chair. "I was walking to my vehicle after work when I was accosted from behind," Maya recounted, her voice hoarse. "It was professional. They knew precisely how to inflict harm without fatalities." Denise's fists clenched. "Did you observe their countenance?" Maya glanced towards the doorway, then lowered her voice. "More importantly, I observed something else. As they subdued me, their jacket rode up. I observed chrome glinting at their hip." Denise felt a chilling premonition. "A badge?" Maya nodded subtly. "Issued by the department, identical to yours." The confirmation struck Denise with the force of a physical blow. One of her own colleagues had perpetrated this assault, someone she might encounter daily in the precinct corridors. "I am so profoundly sorry," Denise whispered. "I should never have—" "Cease," Maya commanded, her uninjured hand grasping Denise's wrist with surprising fortitude. "This validates that we are on the cusp of something substantial. They are apprehensive." "They ought to be apprehensive of me now," Denise growled. "Good," Maya responded, shifting with a grimace. "Because I am not yielding. Neither should you." A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Lopez requires rest." "5 more minutes," Maya pleaded. The nurse, though frowning, relented. Once they were alone again, Maya spoke with urgency. "The memorandum is secure, correct? Locked within my desk at home. I shall commence making duplicates today." "Excellent, because this," Maya gestured towards her injuries, "signifies we are close. They would not jeopardize an attack on a journalist unless they felt cornered." Denise rose. "Obtain some rest. I shall check on you tomorrow." "Exercise caution," Maya called out as Denise approached the exit. "They are aware we possess leverage." The drive home was a blur of seething anger and profound concern. Denise's thoughts repeatedly circled Maya's words. A departmental badge. One of her associates had been responsible for this atrocity. The betrayal cut deeply. She pulled into her driveway as the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange. A sense of unease permeated the air even before she reached the front door. The door was locked, but that offered little assurance. Denise drew her off-duty firearm, entering with extreme caution. The living room appeared undisturbed. The kitchen seemed normal. However, as she approached her study, she perceived it. The door was slightly ajar, when she always ensured it remained firmly closed. Her heart pounded erratically. Denise pushed the door open. The room was in utter disarray. Books had been dislodged from their shelves. Papers were scattered across her father's desk. The robust oak drawer had been forcefully pried open, its lock splintered. Denise surged forward, already dreading the discovery. The hidden compartment gaped, empty. The manila envelope containing their critical evidence had vanished. Denise sank into her chair, the enormity of the loss overwhelming her. Their proof, the documentation that could have exposed everything, had been utterly obliterated. She thought of Maya, lying battered but unbowed in that hospital bed. Of all the victims of this insidious scheme who were counting on them even if they were unaware of it. Her phone buzzed, displaying a text from an unfamiliar number. Next time, it won't be solely the journalist. Denise stared at the message, her hands trembling with unadulterated fury. They harbored the delusion that this would deter her, that pilfering evidence and assaulting her friend would compel her to retreat. They profoundly misunderstood her character. She dialed 911, reporting the break-in, but she already anticipated the predictable response. A perfunctory report devoid of any genuine investigation, the system steadfastly protecting its own. As she awaited the arrival of patrol officers, Denise surveyed her violated study. The desk, a cherished heirloom from her father, now lay damaged, the scattered remnants of her painstakingly compiled investigation. They had absconded with the memorandum, but they could not extinguish her unwavering resolve, nor Maya's courage, nor the undeniable truth of their discovery. The morning after the unsettling intrusion, Denise sat at her kitchen table, her gaze fixed upon the official summons from Internal Affairs. The cream-colored paper felt ponderous in her grasp, each word a crushing blow. Immediate suspension, pending investigation, allegations of misconduct. Her mobile device buzzed incessantly. News alerts flashed across the screen, each headline more alarming than the last. Troubled police captain alleges conspiracy. Sources indicate suspended officer exhibits signs of instability. Police captain's vendetta against mall security prompts inquiries. Denise clicked on one article, her jaw tightening as she read, "Internal Department sources characterize Captain Carter's recent demeanor as erratic and vindictive. Colleagues express concern over the decorated officer's apparent fixation on substantiating discrimination at Greenwood Mall." "Fabrications," she whispered, closing the browser. Yet, the damage was indisputably done. They were actively cultivating an image of her as the irate black woman, contorting her justified indignation into something volatile and irrational. Her phone rang again, an unknown number. "Hope you die, pig." She had received dozens of similar messages since the previous day. Some were elaborately vitriolic, others direct death threats. Denise rose and drew the window blinds tighter, though it was barely past noon. The encroaching darkness offered a semblance of security. She had already meticulously swept the apartment twice for any listening devices, meticulously checked all windows and doors. Perhaps it was paranoia, but after what had befallen Maya, after the invasive break-in, the television droned inconsequentially in the background, a local news anchor discussing her predicament with feigned sympathy. Sources suggest that Captain Carter's assertions of systematic discrimination appear to be unsubstantiated, potentially stemming from personal grievances. Denise snatched the remote, deactivating the device with trembling hands. The ensuing silence was infinitely preferable to their deceitful pronouncements. Her badge and firearm rested on the coffee table, surrendered that very morning to internal affairs. 20 years of dedicated service reduced to a piece of metal and a weapon she could no longer wield. The sight of them churned her stomach. Her phone rang. It was her sister. Denise allowed it to divert to voicemail. What solace could she offer? That she was well. That everything would ultimately resolve itself. The falsehoods would choke her. She paced the confines of the apartment, feeling utterly ensnared. The walls seemed to constrict with each passing moment. Every shadow harbored potential threats. Every unexpected sound caused her to start. A news helicopter droned overhead. They had been circling her building throughout the morning, presumably seeking a glimpse of the distraught captain. Denise retreated from the windows, despite the blinds already being drawn tight. Her laptop chimed, signaling new email notifications from the police union in light of recent events and from her supervisor. Disappointment barely encompasses the sentiment, read an anonymous message. You should have maintained your silence. She slammed the laptop shut. The screen had begun to blur anyway, her eyes stinging with the sting of frustrated tears. She refused to succumb. The doorbell rang, elicting a sharp start. Denise approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Her heart leaped. Kayla stood in the hallway, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Denise opened the door swiftly, pulling her niece inside. Kayla, what are you doing here? You should be at school. Half day, Kayla responded, dropping her backpack. Without hesitation, she enveloped her aunt in a fierce, embracing hug. And I needed to see you. Denise stiffened initially, then melted into the embrace. She hadn't realized how desperately she craved this simple, human connection from someone who didn't perceive her as a threat or a failure. Mom's worried, Kayla said, still holding tight. She's been trying to call you. I know. Denise pulled back, studying her niece's face. I can't talk to anyone right now. Not with everything. You mean all the lies they're spreading? Kayla's youthful countenance hardened with indignation. We know they're lies, Auntie Dee. Everyone at school knows it too. She produced her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. Look at this. The video loaded, the footage from the mall. Denise attempted to avert her gaze, unwilling to relive that humiliation, but Kayla insisted, no, look at the viewership numbers. The figure took a moment to register, 5.2 million views. The comment section was a deluge. This is the manifestation of systemic racism. Captain Carter is a hero for taking a stand. We stand with you, Captain. It's not just the video, Kayla continued excitedly. People are sharing their own experiences with Officer Rains, with mall security, with the entire corrupt system. You've ignited something, Auntie Dee. Denise sank onto the couch, feeling utterly overwhelmed. They're still saying I'm unstable, that I'm fabricating everything. So what? Kayla sat beside her, her young face radiating fierce determination. The truth is out there now. People are watching. They are listening, and they are angry, not at you, but at them. Kayla navigated to another page, a social media group boasting thousands of members, all recounting similar encounters at Greenwood Mall. Tales of harassment, wrongful arrests, coerced confessions. See? Kayla squeezed her aunt's hand. You are not alone, and you are not delusional. You are the only one courageous enough to confront them. For the first time in days, Denise experienced a sensation other than despair. A faint spark of hope was kindled by her niece's unwavering faith and the growing indication that public opinion was beginning to shift. When did you become so wise? She inquired, managing a faint smile. I learned from the best. Kayla embraced her again. You always taught me to defend what is right, regardless of the consequences. That is precisely what you are doing now, and we are all standing alongside you. The afternoon sun beat down upon the steadily growing throng assembled outside Greenwood Mall. Denise stood amidst the protesters, a baseball cap pulled low over her eyes, observing with astonishment as hundreds of voices united in a single chant. Justice for Carter! Justice for Carter! Signs bobbed above the sea of individuals. Stop racial profiling. End police corruption. We stand with Captain Carter. Denise's throat constricted. Merely days prior, she had felt utterly isolated. Now, strangers were demanding justice in her name. The crowd extended along the mall's entire frontage, compelling shoppers to navigate through protest lines simply to gain entry. Mall security personnel huddled nervously behind the glass doors, engaged in constant radio communication. A few uniformed officers maintained a distant presence, appearing visibly uncomfortable. None of them recognized her within the assembly. "This is the true meaning of solidarity," declared an elderly woman positioned beside Denise, her silver hair adorned with a Black Lives Matter cap. "They believed they could silence you, Captain." "But where is your voice now?" Denise nodded, unable to trust herself to speak. The woman squeezed her arm and moved away, entirely unaware that she had just offered encouragement to the very individual they were all assembled to support. A contingent of teenagers near the front initiated a new chant. "Show the truth. Show the truth." The rhythm reverberated through the crowd with astonishing rapidity. Denise felt it resonate within her chest, each beat mirroring her own heart. The atmosphere crackled with potent energy, charged with righteous indignation and burgeoning hope. "Captain Carter." Denise turned at the soft voice behind her. A young black girl stood there, her phone clutched to her chest, her eyes wide with recognition. "I am Tiana," the girl stated quickly. "Tiana Brooks. I recorded the video of what they did to you." Denise's eyes widened. She had viewed the viral footage countless times, but had never known its originator. "Thank you," she said softly. "Your video conveyed the truth to people." Tiana glanced around nervously. Not the entire truth. Not yet. She produced her phone, displaying a video. "I have additional footage from before they apprehended you." She drew Denise aside, away from the main assembly, and held up her phone. "I began recording the moment I observed Officer Rains entering the mall. Something felt amiss regarding the speed of his arrival." The video commenced playing. Denise watched as Rains strode purposefully through the mall, his movements betraying a clear objective towards the boutique. This footage, however, commenced nearly 5 minutes prior to the confrontation, before any allegations had been made. "Observe," Tiana pointed. Within the frame, Rains paused at the boutique's entrance. He leaned in, whispering something to the manager, Linda. Linda nodded, her expression hardening. Rains then stepped back out of view and waited. Less than a minute later, Denise entered the store on the footage. "He orchestrated it," Denise breathed. "He set the entire thing in motion before I even entered the establishment." Tiana nodded vigorously. "He did the same thing to my cousin last month, but no one would believe us then. When I saw him heading towards that store, I knew something was about to transpire. I simply didn't anticipate it would be you he was targeting." "Why did you not release this segment previously?" "I was apprehensive," Tiana admitted. "Rains has connections everywhere. But witnessing all these individuals here today," she gestured towards the crowd, "I can no longer remain silent. This conclusively demonstrates his premeditation. He profiled you before you even entered the store." Denise's mind raced. The unedited footage was unequivocally damning. It revealed clear premeditation, completely undermining any assertion that the confrontation arose spontaneously from suspicious behavior. "I'm not the sole individual possessing videos," Tiana continued. "I maintain a YouTube channel dedicated to police accountability. People have been submitting clips to me for months." The same pattern repeating endlessly. Always this shopping center, always singling out shoppers of color. The clamor of the assembled grew in volume. "No justice, no peace." Tiana's hand found Denise's arm. "My supporters are ready to assist. We can broadcast this far and wide, but it requires a voice. Your voice. They have faith in you. Your standing proves that even law enforcement officers of color are not immune to this pervasive dishonesty." Denise gazed at the demonstration, her thoughts a whirl of potential actions. The unedited footage, the testimonies Maya had collected, the financial documents connecting the mall to the probationary program, and now a legion of young advocates prepared to amplify the truth. "They cannot silence us all," Tiana stated with conviction. "Not if we unite." A news vehicle pulled to the curb, its reporter and cameraman disembarking. The throng surged forward, eager to make their views known. Denise observed the reporter setting up, her pulse accelerating. She now possessed irrefutable proof, tangible, undeniable evidence. More importantly, she had allies, a growing movement behind her. The protesters' unified cries intensified. "What do we demand? Justice! When do we want it? Now!" Mall security requested backup. Additional police cruisers arrived, officers forming a barrier between the protesters and the entrance. Tiana held up her mobile device, the incriminating video poised for distribution. "What is your directive, Captain?" Denise squared her shoulders, drawing fortitude from the collective energy of the crowd. The truth was readily available in Tiana's possession. All she needed was the opportune moment to unveil it. A moment so significant they would be incapable of suppressing the narrative again. The stark glow of Metro General's recovery ward cast deep shadows upon Maya's injured face. She reclined propped up in the hospital cot, her left arm encased in plaster, yet her eyes burned with the same resolute spirit, Denise recalled. "You ought to be recuperating," Denise commented, settling into the chair beside the bed. The protests outside Greenwood Mall still resonated in her thoughts. Maya shifted herself with a grimace. "I cannot rest. Not when I possess something of this magnitude." She glanced towards the door before lowering her voice. "Do you recall me mentioning my assailant wore a badge?" Denise nodded, leaning closer. "Well, he was careless." A flicker of satisfaction crossed Maya's features. "During the assault, my phone slipped. He snatched it, likely believing I had recorded him, but he was unaware of my advanced security protocols." "What do you mean?" Maya's capable hand reached for her laptop on the bedside table. "I am a journalist in the year 2024. Do you imagine I lack tracking software? The instant he activated my phone, it commenced uploading everything to my cloud storage, including—" She opened a directory, revealing all the files from his device. Denise's eyes widened. "You infiltrated a police officer's phone?" "Technically, he compromised himself by connecting to my device. And do you know whose phone it was?" Maya angled the screen towards Denise. "Officer James Martinez, Raines's colleague." Denise examined the documents filling the display. Spreadsheets, bank statements, email exchanges. Her hands began to tremble as she read. "It is all here," Maya stated. "Every remittance from Greenwood Mall's parent corporation to New Horizons Supervision Services. Every illicit payment to city officials who sanctioned the agreements. Observe the dates. They precisely align with the surge in arrests." Denise scrolled through correspondence between Raines and Charles Wilson, the mall's chief executive officer. They discussed performance targets and favored demographic groups with callous indifference. Another thread revealed exchanges with Judge Harrison, who presided over the majority of mall-related legal proceedings regarding methods to expedite guilty pleas. "They are not even attempting to conceal it," Denise murmured. "They assumed no one would ever discover these." "There is more." Maya produced another document. "Remember that memorandum that vanished from your desk? I located a copy within Martinez's emails. He was the one who broke in, likely on Raines' instructions. The pieces coalesced in Denise's mind. That is why they assaulted you. They were aware you were on the verge of exposing everything, and now we possess proof that extends far beyond mere racial bias at the mall. This is systematic exploitation for financial gain." Maya's voice gained strength. "However, we require the appropriate channel to disseminate it, a venue where they cannot suppress it or distort the narrative." Denise retrieved her phone, consulting the city's schedule. "The council session this Thursday evening. It is a public forum. Anyone may address it." "Perfect." Maya sat up straighter, disregarding the discomfort. "The media invariably covers council meetings. Furthermore, a portion of the individuals implicated in these documents will be seated directly on the council. They will attempt to silence me the moment I begin to speak, not if we orchestrate the timing precisely." Maya's journalistic instincts surged. "We release the unedited arrest footage 1 hour before the session. While everyone is reacting to that, you take the podium. Once you commence presenting the financial evidence, they will not dare to halt you. Not with every camera broadcasting. Denise envisioned the scenario, confronting Rains, the council members, the mall executives, all those who believed they could break her. We will need to meticulously organize everything. These documents, the video recordings, witness accounts. I have already commenced compiling it. Maya displayed a presentation. We simply need to refine your statement. Begin with the personal narrative first. What transpired with you? Then broaden it to illustrate the pervasive pattern. Conclude with the financial proof that binds it all together. They dedicated the subsequent hour to organizing the evidence and formulating the narrative. Maya's journalistic acumen aided in structuring the revelations for maximum impact. Denise incorporated details from her law enforcement background, emphasizing how each element contravenes specific protocols and statutes. You are aware they will pursue us aggressively for this, Denise stated finally, especially you. They have already demonstrated a willingness to employ aggression. Maya touched her injured face. Let them attempt it. Every attack merely validates that we are speaking the truth. Besides, she managed a smile, I have a police captain safeguarding my well-being now. Denise gently squeezed Maya's hand. Get some rest. I will arrange for trusted uniformed officers to stand guard outside your door tonight. Later that evening, Denise stood before her bathroom mirror, index cards in hand. The prepared speech felt laden with truth and consequences. She studied her reflection, the shadows beneath her eyes, the new lines of stress around her mouth, the steely resolve in her gaze. My name is Captain Denise Carter, she practiced, her voice steady. 2 weeks ago, I was unjustly apprehended while patronizing Greenwood Mall, but this transcends a single instance of racial profiling. This represents a systemic criminal operation functioning within our municipality. She paused, recalling the protesters' chant, Tiana's bravery, Maya's unwavering resolve despite her injuries. The weight of their trust settled upon her shoulders. This ceases now, she declared to her reflection. All of it. She laid out her attire for Thursday, her sharpest blazer, perfectly pressed trousers, polished footwear. Her captain's insignia, which she had not worn since her suspension, caught the light on her dresser. She picked it up, feeling its familiar heft. Everything hinged on Thursday evening. The evidence was substantial. The witnesses were prepared. The stage was set. She simply needed to step forward and articulate the truth. Denise returned to the mirror, her shoulders back. My name is Captain Denise Carter, she recommenced, her voice gaining strength with each word. The polished stone corridors of City Hall echoed with footsteps and hushed exchanges. Camera crews jostled for prime positions near the council chamber entrances. Within, every seat was occupied, with individuals lining the walls and extending into the hallway. Denise paused at the threshold, her heart pounding. The evidence folder felt substantial in her grasp. She discerned familiar faces, Maya in the rear, her arms still in casts, Tiana with her device poised for recording, community advocates adorned with Justice for Carter attire. Initially, no one noticed her. She was attired in civilian clothing, her badge discreetly affixed inside her blazer. Near the front, Officer Rains lounged in his chair, engaged in conversation and laughter with Charles Wilson, the mall's chief executive. Their comfortable air of entitlement made her stomach churn. Mayor Thompson occupied the central position on the elevated council dais, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. His gaze flickered between his mobile device and the assembled crowd. The other council members shifted in their seats. Clearly cognizant of the palpable tension permeating the room, Denise took her place in the queue behind other citizens awaiting their turn to speak. Each individual was allocated 3 minutes at the podium. She observed the clock, aware that her video was slated for release imminently. A stir rippled through the crowd. Mobile devices illuminated across the chamber. People nudged each other, displaying their screens. Rains's laughter abruptly ceased mid-chuckle as he became aware. The unedited footage of her apprehension was now live. Mayor Thompson cleared his throat. Next speaker, please. Denise stepped up to the podium. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. Rains sat bolt upright, his smirk faltering. My name is Captain Denise Carter. Her voice carried clearly and powerfully through the microphone. 2 weeks ago, I was unjustly apprehended while patronizing Greenwood Mall. But this is not merely about one instance of racial profiling. She opened her evidence folder, spreading documents across the podium. This is about a systemic criminal enterprise operating within our city, an enterprise that targets black citizens for arrest, compels them into plea agreements, and profits from their probation. The crowd's murmurs intensified. Camera flashes illuminated the room. I have here internal communications between mall executives and police officers. She held up the initial document. They discuss arrest quotas targeting specific demographics. I possess financial records detailing payments from the mall's parent corporation to New Horizons Supervision Services. Wilson, the mall CEO, extracted his phone, typing with urgency. Mayor Thompson attempted to interject. Captain Carter, this forum is designated for community concerns, not baseless allegations. These accusations are fully substantiated, Denise continued, her voice escalating, including emails exchanged between Officer James Rains and Judge Harrison discussing how to expedite guilty pleas. She turned to face Rains directly. The very Officer Rains who falsely apprehended me then submitted a fraudulent report claiming I assaulted him. Rains's face flushed crimson. He half rose from his seat, but Wilson grasped his arm, whispering urgently. When I commenced investigating this scheme, I was suspended. A journalist assisting me was assaulted by a police officer, but they made an error. Denise presented a thumb drive. The officer who attacked her inadvertently uploaded evidence proving everything I'm stating. The crowd was fully engaged now, capturing every utterance. Some individuals were already posting live updates. Mobile devices continued to buzz with notifications as the narrative disseminated. This system has devastated lives, Denise declared. Hundreds of innocent citizens coerced into guilty pleas, forced to pay probation fees they cannot afford, ensnared in a cycle of debt and surveillance, all to enrich a private corporation and its accomplices. She looked directly at the council. You have all viewed the video by now. That is how it commences. However, I have testimonies from dozens of victims. I have proof of illicit payments to city officials. That is sufficient. Rains erupted from his seat. He strode towards the podium, his hand moving towards his weapon. You are under arrest for defamation and obstruction of an investigation. The crowd surged to its feet. But before Rains could reach her, two uniformed officers stepped into his path. Denise recognized them. Officers Chen and Rodriguez from her precinct. Stand down, Rains, Chen stated firmly. You are not apprehending anyone. Get out of my way. Rains attempted to push past them. That is an order. We do not take orders from you, Rodriguez countered. More officers emerged from the crowd, forming a protective cordon between Rains and Denise. The chamber erupted. People sprang to feet, mobile devices recording everything. A chant commenced from the rear. Justice, justice, spreading until it engulfed the room. Rains retreated, his features contorted with fury and disbelief. The mall's CEO had already discreetly moved towards the exit. Mayor Thompson was frantically banging his gavel, attempting to restore order, but the chant only grew louder. Justice, justice, justice. Denise stood at the podium, surrounded by her fellow officers, observing as the truth she had fought so arduously to expose finally burst into the light. The council chamber descended into pandemonium. Camera crews surged forward. Microphones extended like lances. Flashbulbs transformed the room into a disorienting strobe effect of light and shadow. The chant for justice reverberated off the marble walls, escalating into a thunderous roar. Denise remained steady at the podium, her hands no longer trembling. She had borne this burden for weeks, the fear, the anger, the betrayal. Now, witnessing it all unravel, she felt an unusual sense of calm. State Attorney Patricia Walsh shouldered her way through the throng, her expression resolute. She had been seated quietly in the back, absorbing every word. Now she meant business. Captain Carter, Walsh called out above the din, I require those documents, all of them, immediately. Denise carefully gathered her evidence folder, ensuring every sheet was in place. The financial records Maya had retrieved from her assailant's phone, the internal memos, the victim testimonies, 2 weeks of her life compressed into manila and paper. "It is all here," Denise stated, handing over the folder. "The financial trail extends back 3 years. Payments from shell corporations owned by the mall's parent entity, routed through offshore accounts, landing in Judge Harrison's private foundation. Similar payments to New Horizons Supervision Services, which is owned by Councilman Peters's brother-in-law." Walsh flipped through the documents, her eyes widening. "This is comprehensive. I am summoning my team. No one leaves this chamber." The mayor was still attempting to reassert control, but his gavel strikes were drowned out by the crowd. Several council members had already slipped away through a side exit. Others sat frozen, their faces pale, likely contemplating whether their names appeared in that folder. Rains paced near the wall like a caged animal, the other officers still barring his path to Denise. His hand repeatedly twitched towards his empty holster. Chen had quietly persuaded him to relinquish his weapon minutes earlier. "This is all fabricated," Rains bellowed, his voice cracking. "She is inventing it. She is attempting to dismantle everything we have established." He caught himself too late. "Everything you have established." Walsh turned towards him sharply. "And precisely what have you established, Officer Rains?" More state investigators arrived, flowing into the chamber like a tide of dark suits and badges. They moved with practiced efficiency, securing exits, confiscating phones, recording names. Charles Wilson, the mall's chief executive, attempted to blend in with a group heading for the exit. A female investigator stepped into his path. "Mr. Wilson, we will require you to remain. I have an urgent engagement," Wilson began. "Yes," the investigator interrupted. "You do. With us." Near the podium, Officer Rodriguez approached Rains, holding a pair of handcuffs. The sight seemed to break something within Rains. His face contorted with rage. "You cannot do this," he snarled. "I am one of you. 20 years on the force. You are truly going to side with her?" "Turn around, James," Rodriguez stated quietly. "Do not make this worse." For a moment it appeared Rains might resist. His muscles tensed, his eyes darting between the officers surrounding him. Then his shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him all at once. As Rodriguez cuffed him, reciting his rights, Rains kept his gaze fixed on Denise. The animosity in his stare was pure venom. But Denise did not avert her gaze. She had spent too long looking away from unpleasant truths. Mayor Thompson had finally abandoned his gavel. He stood, straightening his tie, attempting to project an authority he no longer possessed. "In light of these allegations," he announced, "I am calling for an immediate independent investigation into all matters raised here tonight. The city will cooperate fully." "The state is assuming control of this investigation," Walsh interjected. "Your cooperation is not optional, Mr. Mayor. It is mandated by law." The crowd had transitioned from chanting to filming everything on their mobile devices. The narrative was already exploding across social media platforms. Reporters were conducting live stand-ups from every corner of the chamber. Denise watched as Rains was escorted away, followed by Wilson and several visibly apprehensive council members. State investigators were sealing off offices, confiscating computers, and labeling evidence. The system she had fought against was being dismantled, piece by piece, right before her eyes. Officer Chen gently touched her arm. "Captain, a crowd has gathered outside. They wish to hear from you." Denise nodded, suddenly feeling the onset of exhaustion. The adrenaline was dissipating, leaving her drained, but she knew she had one more task to complete. She made her way through the chamber, accepting handshakes and pats on the back from strangers. Maya caught her eye across the room, offering a thumbs up with her good arm. Tiana was already uploading her video footage, a triumphant grin on her face. The imposing doors of City Hall opened onto a warm evening. The steps were thronged with protesters, their signs illuminated by streetlights and phone screens. As Denise emerged, a cheer erupted that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. "Captain Carter! Captain Carter!" She stood at the top of the steps, gazing out over the sea of faces, black, white, young, old, all united in demanding change. Some were weeping. Others embraced complete strangers. Parents lifted children onto their shoulders for a better view. For the first time in weeks, Denise felt the crushing weight begin to lift from her shoulders. She had carried the burden of this struggle alone for so long, but she was no longer alone. The truth was out. Justice was imminent. The cool night air felt like liberation on her skin. 3 days later, Greenwood Mall stood like a spectral remnant of its former self. The customary Saturday throng had been supplanted by an unnerving quiet, punctuated only by the echo of footsteps on polished floors. Yellow police tape crisscrossed the entrances of several establishments, their windows dark and shuttered, pending investigation. Denise walked through the main corridor, her heels clicking against the tile. She wore her captain's uniform today, not out of obligation, but as a deliberate statement. This time, there would be no ambiguity about her identity. The few stores that remained open had more employees than customers. Numerous shops were temporarily shuttered, their proprietors caught up in the expanding inquiry. The food court, typically bustling on weekends, was half empty. Signage on windows announced, "Under new management," or "Temporarily closed pending review." A young mother pushing a stroller recognized Denise, her face breaking into a wide smile. "Captain Carter, thank you. Thank you for all that you have done." Denise nodded, touched by the warmth in the woman's voice. More individuals noticed her, beginning to congregate. An elderly gentleman extended his hand. "My grandson was one of them," he stated quietly. "They apprehended him on a false charge last year, forced him to accept that plea bargain. Now his case is under review. Thanks to you." "I am pleased," Denise replied, squeezing his hand. "That is precisely why we waged this battle." A small crowd had formed, following at a respectful distance. Some offered soft applause, while others simply wished to convey their gratitude with a nod or a smile. Security personnel, newly hired after the dismissal of the entire preceding team, stood at attention and saluted as she passed. Near the fountain, a group of teenage girls whispered excitedly, pointing at her. One broke away from the group, approaching nervously. "Captain, would you take a picture with us? You are like our hero now." In our civics lesson, we prepared a comprehensive presentation about your experience. Denise posed for photographs with a group of enthusiastic young women, their excitement palpable. Their mobile devices flashed and clicked, capturing the moment. She recalled her own youth, imagining how profoundly impactful it would have been to witness someone resembling her confronting authority and emerging victorious. "Never allow anyone to diminish your sense of self-worth," she imparted to them. "Uphold what is just, even when it presents a significant challenge." She then noticed Kayla patiently waiting near the boutique, the very establishment where their ordeal had begun. Upon seeing Denise, her niece's face illuminated with joy. "Auntie Dee," Kayla exclaimed, rushing forward for an embrace. "It feels so peculiar to be back here." Denise inquired, "Is it a good peculiar or a bad peculiar?" "Good peculiar," Kayla affirmed. "Definitely good peculiar." Gesturing towards the shop, Kayla added, "They have an entirely new staff. And the manager who contacted the authorities on you? She's under investigation as well. It turns out she was accepting illicit payments for singling out black patrons." Inside the boutique, the atmosphere was strikingly transformed. The new employees greeted them with genuine warmth, bordering on reverence. The young woman at the cash register could hardly contain her excitement. "Captain Carter, it is an immense honor. Please do not hesitate to inform us if you require anything whatsoever." Denise and Caleb leisurely perused the jewelry displays, finally able to engage in shopping without apprehension. The very showcases that had led to Denise's apprehension now gleamed innocuously under the lights. "I still find it hard to believe it took us 3 weeks just to get you a birthday present," Denise remarked, examining an exquisite silver necklace. "However, it was certainly worth the wait." Kayla gently touched her aunt's arm. "What you did truly made a difference. It genuinely altered things. The way kids at school regard me has shifted. They're curious about what it's like to have a superhero as an aunt." Denise chuckled. "I'm no superhero, dear. Merely someone who grew weary of being mistreated." "But that's precisely what makes you a hero," Kayla countered. You were afraid, yet you acted regardless. They ultimately selected a stunning pendant, its design featuring delicate silver wings poised for flight. As they approached the checkout, other patrons politely stepped aside, encouraging them to proceed first. The cashier meticulously wrapped their purchase, thoughtfully including a second small gift box. "This is a token of our appreciation," she explained, "to offer an apology for everything that occurred." Denise began to demur, but the girl's sincere expression halted her. "Thank you. That is incredibly thoughtful." A larger crowd had now assembled outside the store, forming an impromptu, welcoming line. An elderly woman pressed homemade cookies into Denise's hands. A gentleman in a business suit paused to express his gratitude for her role in exposing the corruption. Parents pointed her out to their children, explaining her significance. "See, that is the police captain who bravely stood up to the wrongdoers." As they moved toward the exit, the gathering crowd expanded. Someone began to clap, a sound that rapidly spread, filling the mall with resonant applause. Denise felt Kayla's hand tighten in hers. Security personnel held the doors open as they approached. Outdoors, the late afternoon sun cast a breathtaking spectacle of orange and pink hues across the sky. The ovation continued to accompany them into the parking lot. Kayla clutched her shopping bag, a wide grin on her face. "This feels like the ending of a movie or something." Denise smiled, reflecting on the entire journey. The fear, the anger, the betrayal, but also the courage, the unity, and the triumph. She thought of Maya, recuperating but already immersed in her next investigative piece. Of Tiana, whose viral video had ignited a movement. And of all the individuals whose lives had been profoundly impacted by this struggle. "You know what, sweetheart?" Denise said, squeezing her niece's shoulder, her voice a low murmur intended solely for Kayla's ears. "This fight is far from over, but today we have achieved a victory." The setting sun caught the silver wings of Kayla's new pendant, making them gleam like the embodiment of hope taking flight. I trust you found that narrative engaging. Kindly share it with your acquaintances and subscribe to ensure you don't miss subsequent installments. In the interim, I have personally selected 2 stories that I believe you will find equally enjoyable. Have a splendid day.